I'm sure that the majority, if not all the survivors from that day, have asked themselves that question. Why me? Psychologists will tell you that feelings of guilt are often experienced by survivors of events or situations during which others have lost their lives. There was a time during the first weeks and months after that day when I did have that very reaction, but somewhere along the line of personal healing, my mind began to focus not on the narrow, black and white fact of my survival, but instead on an expanded concept of how I came to find myself there for that event and what the reality will mean to everything still to come in my future. I'm sure it was at that point when I began to realize that for me, true peace of mind would only come through willingness to accept the fact that there must be and I must find the purpose of my presence there that day. September 11th, 2001, 8:46 a.m. Flight 11, hijacked by Al-Qaeda terrorists, crashed into the World Trade Center North Tower. 9:03 a.m. Flight 175 struck the World Trade South Tower. 9:37 a.m. Hijacked American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, and then at 10:03 a.m. hijacked United Airlines Flight 93 crashed into Somerset County, Pennsylvania, killing all aboard. These terrorist attacks killed almost 3,000 people and forever changed the lives of so many Americans. It is through the memories of those who died, the realization that lives were forever changed, and the stories of those who were there and survived that we take the time to remember so that none are forgotten. The Stairwell of Heaven by Earl C. Johnson. I arrived at work that day a good half hour earlier than usual. It was a gorgeous day, bright blue and sunny. Not long after getting into the office, I was standing with a couple of my team members chatting about a presentation we had later in the day when all of a sudden, BOOM! There was this really loud explosion and a huge shaking and swaying of the building that literally lifted me off my feet and caused me to fall into a nearby wall. The north side of the tower is about 15 feet away, and you could see through the narrow vertical windows that there's this type of debris rotting down outside. I think I said to my coworker, "Get away from the window, we have to get out of here!" And so we slammed right into the crash bar and took off running south out the office back door and into a nearby stairwell immediately to our left. We ran down about 8 floors when we soon ran into the back end of the line of all the other smart people who had the same idea. Get in the stairwell and get down. We did not move literally another step at that point for a good 15 minutes, and with each passing minute, you began to sense in your own body the amount of energy you're expending trying to tell yourself to stay calm. It was at that moment when I realized the goodness of what happened that day inside that stairwell. People helped each other. Whether they were more physically challenged at navigating the situation or from an emotional standpoint, simply needing reassurance, somebody reached out a hand and gave that to them. Complete strangers I mean, whether it's just giving someone a hug or giving someone an arm to lean on, or in my case, I wound up holding a woman's hand for the better part of the entire way down. It was the extensions of kindness as the natural reaction of people in this situation that stands so starkly in my mind. I mean, in an environment of physical confinement, overcrowding, and palpable anxiety and fear, the pest in all of us presented itself. As the line began to move again, the presence of fear was still with us. I mean, you had this impending sense that something is not right. As we continued down, the next real event was the second plane hitting the cell tower. I mean, as separated as those buildings were, the concussion and shockwave of the impact rattled through our little space, and you could see people's fear rise to a new level. It was another unknown, a very loud and disturbing movement of this building that you knew shouldn't be occurring in something this large. At some point, I think we were at the upper mid-30s when someone on a landing below me opened the door from that stairwell to that floor, which had 50 or 60 people in it when I entered it. As I walked about 15 feet away from the door, my body had a physical reaction. My legs locked up, and I stepped aside to gain my balance and took a breath and looked at my coworkers and said, "We have to get out of here." And so we made our way back into the stairwell and caught up with the rest of the group who had continued in front of us. I don't have any evidence to support this, but it is my belief that not everyone who decided to stop on that floor that day made it out alive. At some point, I thought I heard some clapping, but it was just fading in and out. But as I got down another flight, it just kept getting louder and louder. Then you see him. It's a New York City firefighter. He's turning the corner on those steps and he's marching up those steps and he's telling you, "It's gonna be okay. You're gonna get out and keep calm." And after you saw the first one, they just kept coming. I mean, there were Port Authority policemen, NYPD policemen, plainclothes detectives, and of course the firemen. Now imagine, these first responders rolled up to those buildings, got out, saw what you were seeing up in the TV, and yet came in to do their job. Where do we get men and women like that to do this kind of job? I mean, the self-sacrificing mentality of these people just boggles my mind. As we approach the bottom, you can smell that we're gonna get out of here. As we made our way around the shopping area, we made to the other side of the complex and hiked up the escalator and stepped out into that bright sunshine and clear blue sky. It was only after walking about 15 feet away from the building overhang that I could actually now turn around and look up and see what the rest of the world had been watching on TV. And it was the most surreal, unbelievable sight my eyes will ever see. I mean, the thousands of people miling about looking lost, the poor souls whose only choice was to jump to their death or be consumed by the flames, and all of this imagery weighed heavily in my heart. It simply was too much to process all at once. Have you forgotten were the words immortalized in the aftermath of 9/11? Those three simple words. Have you forgotten? With success comes the freedom and awakening driven by the individual's ability to celebrate life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.